If I were to ask you, of all the 150 Psalms in the Bible, which one is most frequently read by Christians, what would you say? Psalm 23? Maybe Psalm 91? Wrong on both counts, but let me give you a hint. It's been called the Mount Everest of Psalms, exalting the soul to breathtaking heights. Charles Spurgeon called it the apple tree among the trees of the wood. It's a Psalm of David, if that helps. It's also been called a masterpiece of beautiful imagery, poetry, and humility. Have you figured it out? Well, if you guessed Psalm 103, you got it. A beautiful hymn of praise and thanksgiving. A gentle psalm. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear him, the psalm says. And a very encouraging psalm. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so deep are his mercies to those who fear him, the psalm says. But what if I were to tell you that the underlying message of this beautiful, gentle, encouraging psalm is actually one of power? Now remember, it's a Psalm of David. And one thing I have always loved about David is that so often, in so many ways, he is so much like you and I. He has a heart of passionate love for the Lord, consumed by a desire to be in God's presence, to walk in holiness and in righteousness. And yet, he is ever aware of his own shortcomings, sin overpowering him often, crying out to God for forgiveness, just like you and I. But David was a master of self-talk, constantly encouraging himself in what he already knew to be true, in who God is, who he is in God, what his attitude should be. Why are you downcast, O my soul? Hope in God, he said to himself. Often he said, I will praise you, I will bless you, I will, encouraging his heart to always make those right choices. And in Psalm 103, he does the same thing. Soul, he says, bless the Lord. Or, more accurately, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name. But I would ask, how do you do that when the world seems to be collapsing around you? When you're tired, when you're sick, when you're discouraged, when you're having problems in your family or with your finances? Well, I believe Psalm 103 reveals to us the power to do so. And I further believe that verse 2 holds the keys to that power. The first key that David reveals starts this way: forget not. Forget not. In other words, look backward. Remember everything that God has already done for you. His mercy, his graciousness, his goodness, his salvation, his power. Constantly in the scriptures, God's people are encouraged to look back, to remember what God has already done in order to have the power to face the future. The second key that David reveals is the power of forgiveness. And in Hebrew, the word means to toss aside, to forever forget. We know that when we receive God's forgiveness, it is like the song, our chains are gone, we've been set free. And what power there is in that forgiveness. The next key that David reveals is the key of redemption. The Lord was David's kinsman redeemer, his closest relative, redeeming his life from destruction and crowning him with the glories of spiritual redemption. All throughout his life, many times David faced destruction, spiritually and physically. And his kinsman redeemer never failed him once. How incredible it is for you and I to think of God as our kinsman redeemer, the Lord of the universe as our closest, dearest, most precious relative, bound by his own law to redeem the lives of those that are his. The next key, I believe, is the power of language. It gave David the authority to redirect his thoughts, to change his attitudes, bringing him into alignment with the reality of a God whose power, whose authority, whose faithfulness were never up for debate, regardless of the circumstances or the feelings that David might be experiencing. There's great power in the tongue. And Psalm 103 shows us how to use that power in a way that keeps us right in the middle of God's will. And finally, I believe the last key that David reveals to us is the power of praise. Over 200 times in the book of Psalms alone, God's people are encouraged to lift their voices in praise to Him. And the Bible is rife with examples of the power that praise unleashes. God cherishes our praises. And through them, that same power is available to you and to me. It's the power to bring light into darkness. It's the power to put the enemy to flight. It's the power to refocus our thoughts from our own problems to the one who is worthy of our praises. It's the power to bring us into His presence, intimate oneness with our kinsman redeemer. It's the power to calm the storm. It's the power to quench the fire. It's the power to move the mountain. And God longs to give that power to each one of us. So if you're interested in learning more about unlocking the power of Psalm 103, please join us on our website, bridgesforpeace.com, and discover how this beautiful, gentle, encouraging psalm holds the keys to a life of joyful obedience, of power and yet humility, like the heart of David.